Okay, you can conclude, Mr. Gampu.
Okay, let's include the session with the last P for the mandate of man. So the last P is promoting good in society. I think in our last conversation, you mentioned something which got stuck with me, and I'm just gonna make sure I run with it. One of the things in our last conversation, Olama, you said, as men, because of the many experiences we went through, we need to speak. And then one of the ways that men promote good to society, we cannot be silent. I think there was a quotation that says, society goes to the gutters when good men are silent. Evil men are not shutting up at all. Evil men are promoting their agenda. And us as the African continent, we need men who promote the good of our society. We need men who pause and says, no, this is enough in my day and time. This is enough. Young people going through the same cycles we grew up going through, and no one is going alongside them and showing them the path. This is enough that our young people, they graduate from school, they've got no jobs. This is enough. Let's do something about it. So it's a responsibility and an onus of us as men to promote the good in our society. We cannot be sitting down with all these resources we have, with all this experience we've got. We cannot just afford to sit down and allow evil men to take over society. I mean, in our country currently, corruption is rife. We are losing billions and billions that were supposed to be gone to be helping orphans, to be helping the poor and the less fortunate. But men who knows what is happening behind, men who can say something, they are intimidated because there's a lack of courage with regards to this type of scenarios. I think one of the things that as men we need to do for our society to strive, we need to be a man who promote the good of our societies. We need to take away this mentality of my world, of me, myself, and I. Everything about my life is for myself, my own promotion, my own good. Yes, it starts with you because you take the time to involve yourself, to apply yourself, to equip yourself, to train yourself. But once you've done that, believe me, you'll be the most miserable man. You can be the most successful man in your society. But if you don't promote the good of your society, if you don't promote the good within the continent, the space that you dwell in, you're going to be a very miserable person. And so that I'm begging and I'm asking men that one of the things of the men that we have to do as men, we need to promote the good of our communities, the good of our society, the good of everywhere we go. If, for example, you go and migrate to Australia, when you arrive there, promote the good of the society. Make it a safe haven, because at the end of the day, if you don't do that, you've got kids, they're going to grow up and be victims of that environment, that which is, you do not say anything, you do not raise your hands and say enough is enough in this area. So as men, I think it's a great minute for us to say something and to speak. I mean, we have a vast history within our political space. The likes of the Mbikos, the life of the Mbekis, the life of the Krizanis. These men, they said, no, guys, we need to promote the good of our society. And most of them, obviously, there was a huge risk. Most of them, they lost their lives because of that. They said, no, enough is enough. We need to take this country forward. We need to take our communities forward. Let's do something. Let's promote good. Let's speak against what is wrong. Let's do what is good and speak against what is wrong. I think that is my last and my most important point. And then we can, if you've got any questions, you can close it from there.
No, thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much. I think we've listened at least without even interrupting, so that you can have your field and state your thoughts. One of the things that I intend to do is to actually have people to state their thoughts completely as they are. Because one of the challenges that we are facing as men is that we are expected to come into a conversation. Come into a conversation, let's talk, open up and all of that. And then when men starts to talk, then no, wrong. And then cancel culture and everything. And then men are like, okay, have this conversation on your own then. Because talking does something good to a conversation. It first enables us to establish where are the parameters, where are you standing, how far are you from me, from my viewpoint or my experiences, and how far I am from you. And then from there, the purpose of engagement is to try and find something that will will most likely be closer to what we both could live with. And that's important because for men, we have been told by everyone else that you must be like this. Men are this. Men should be this. A man is good if they are saying this. A man is good if they are doing this. A man is bad if he's saying or doing this. But what and most of the time, this comes from people who are themselves not men in the gender sense. So you realize that the same way as both our backgrounds being Christian, the same way that Christians were not given the name and the tag Christian by Christians. It was not even Jesus, it was just people. I think I just ran out of space. It was just people who said when they looked at these people are, say, Christ-like, and therefore we shall call them Christian. And then the tag stuck, and Christian called themselves that. For men, yes, there's a natural gender role that you are given, but how this role is performed is usually given by someone else, that you are my father, and I feel bad when you do this. I feel good when you do this, in a sense that be this person and that person. So there's so much that we can still unearth in relation to who gave these expectations, and where did you get your descriptions and because you're stating what your views are on the matter. But then now, where does this emanate from? Because as a human being, you have been acculturated, you have been given, you were not born with everything, you took some of the things. What are these influences? Because these influences are brought together and they give you what Thamsanqa Gampu says a man should be. And you can stand and argue and say these are good for society because of A, B, and C. But also understanding that someone else might come with a different view altogether, and to hear them out. I'll make some of the topical questions, including the one who tells how to be as a man, who tells us how to be, and then the demands that are placed on men. Say, you mentioned being a provider. What does it mean in the new economic and a democratic South Africa, a non-sexist South Africa, where now your provision is no longer that of finance? And then how then do you describe and define the provision that a man needs to do, the protection? We have so many other ways that we could be protected. And also, does it mean that a woman who might not, because of statistics, be able to secure this kind of an ideal man is forever lacking on this provision, on this protection, and all of those things? And how do we place that? Another thing is that we have to consider the changing structure and the family structure. I'll make an example of a family structure. Greatest impression was made on us that a family is a male and a female and the children, like utata no mama and abantwana. My reality is that I grew up in King Williamstown with my uncles and my aunts. My mom was not there, my dad was not there. And then I struggled to define what a family is, up until I realized that actually I must acknowledge the kind of a dynamic, fluid family structure, like the uncles that have brought me up, like the aunts that came and took me to the hospital when I was sick, that took care of my needs when my mom was in Johannesburg. And at the time, I still didn't know my dad. And then later on, when I was 12, I was introduced to him. Because if I keep and I run in life trying to look for what I missed with the absence of these two people who had their own choices in life to make, I end up digging a bigger hole as to what a family is. what and my experience, and also dismiss the contribution that my uncles have made upon my life, what my aunt have made upon my life, to a point that I realize with actually those are the people that I'm gonna accept how dynamic my family structure has been, because that it has actually assisted me to move forward. And of course, there are the new gender influences that are topical, and as men, it's not easy to have this conversation in public, because it has an implication also sometimes to your job and job security and your character and your face, all of those things. So I want us to be able to create a safe space to be able to say this is how my views come about, and not fear that because of that, because we have to start having engagement. And the point, therefore, the last one would be how traditional expectations of these roles of men and women have changed and affected the roles. I remember I had a friend of mine years back, and we were having this conversation. We were young, we were really young, but she had been a professional and was not necessarily being able to secure the kind of man she had desired. And a lot of us at the time, which was quite evident, we were not at the professional space because we had to fight with so much in our lives. And then this conversation came of provision, being a provider and all of that. And at some stage, women said, this lady said, look, some things are already covered. And of course, you could end up being the provider, but at a particular time, you might also need support because of your upbringing. You have not probably moved as fast as you wanted, or your foundation has to go deeper than everyone else before it can start actually yielding this provision fruit. And sometimes we put things as blanket approach that you must be this, but sometimes there are timelines that you will end up as. And there are many examples of relationships that didn't work because this provider didn't show up because he was building. And then at a particular time, things go to Zavela Zatubulizindo, they then started to work out. And, he still remains the provider at a particular time, but we would have ascribed this role and impressed quite early on as this person is still building and constructing. We can talk about those stories. We have many of those stories. So the timelines of all of these expectations are some of the most important things that we can talk about. To add on this view that I hold now, is that it's a different thing when you are building something worthwhile, say for generations, than for someone who is more professional. So the timelines differ. If I go to university straight after matric and then go and find a job and then my career booms, but someone else starts to have to learn a skill and start to build and all of that. So the timeline is pushed further on. Both of these are contributors in society. They are contributors and protectors, but then the timelines and those conversations are not, I don't see them being had. I always hear the blanket approach that are not dated or timed. And therefore, there is a sense that as a man, everybody must actually get something from you, and you are as good a man as you can give of yourself to everyone and nothing for yourself until you die. Then you die as a good man because you've given yourself to umedem, given yourself to boss, you've given yourself to the society and community and family, and you did not give yourself anything. Those are the changing roles as people get their independence and their freedoms. What does the freedom of being a man look like, and how can we actually have that conversation, and we explore and see what has changed, what has remained the same. So I asked you to have this conversation also because I knew that we both were actually brought up in the Christian faith. and how has that evolved over time? You know, what can we still take, and who leads this space? Who has the right to be telling us how this person should be, and what validates them? You know, you talked about a mentor. What validates a mentor? What validates this senior man? Is it age? Is it positioning? Is it you know, who places this person? Yes, you desire that there's someone who speaks to you, but how do these things? What are the technicalities? Can you see that there's real need for a men's conference just for us to be
Definitely very soon, yeah.
but just for us to be able to put everything on the table, like, look, we know we had this, we've seen this. That we need to be having. So that is just my view on the matter. And of course, we're just having a conversation amongst ourselves, and there'll be time where we can allow people to join in. But hopefully everyone can just write a comment, and then we'll see how the conversation goes, and then we can build something much more physical and practical as we move forward. Is there anything you'd like to say after these few comments that I've had?
No, I concur with you with many points. I think with the situation, I mean, just because the ideal structure is a man and a female, we've got instances what they call a blended family. You'll find that a husband and a wife had married, then one of them died, and then they move on and get married to another couple. And that couple comes with their children, so you've got two families. So there are dynamics, obviously, that you need to navigate around when you deal with blended families. But the stats are always said to be, the stats don't lie. Statistics, you can check them in South Africa, check in the US, where obviously these are the exceptions and there are ways to deal with them. But primarily the stats, they favor that children, and whether it be men and women, who tend to be successful in life and become something in their life, they tend to come from these households that are headed by both parents. And obviously, as you mentioned, there are exceptions. And I'm liking the conversation because I 100% agree. Sometimes we tend to touch topics on the surface, but we forget we are only dealing with the iceberg effect. On top, we only got this, but underneath, there are layers and layers that we are not digging in, and we are not tunneling through to be able to deal with them. Because most of the time, it's just like in agriculture, if you see the state of the fruit will tell you something about the root itself. So if you always speak in our topics with regards to the fruit and not affect and address the root,
and
we'll
perhaps
always continue
perhaps
speaking.
the condition of
Yes.
the soil.
Yeah. So if you're always going to be speaking about the symptoms and not the root, we'll always come back and have this conversation without getting any change of the fruit. So I think, yeah, you're right. We do need those deliberate conversations as men individually and on a public platform also. I think as you've started, I really appreciate it. This thing will spiral and become a snowball effect and affect other men who'll be maybe watching these topics and these conversations to say, hey, I've got a voice to say, I've got this to contribute to society. I can do this. This topic was always on my mind, but here are people that are conversing about this topic. Let me give a hand, let me give my input, and then we can take this country forward. Yeah, I think that's my closing remark there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gampu. When are you going to be Dr. Gampu?
Hey, my guy. I think maybe the next 10 years. I've started studying. I don't want to say I'm studying. My first class is today. I don't want to say what I'm studying for now, but yeah, let's see where it takes us.
Yeah, man, I've gotten a lot of pressure in the past 3 years. People starting to call me doctor and getting job offers. I'm like, yo, let me go back to the university and finish what I started. Yeah, no, man, thank you so much. And thank you to your family for giving us, your time so that we can actually have this conversation. And yeah, it's never going to be an easy one, because now we're going to have to open the boundaries of many different people and views that they hold, and then we're going to have to actually have some form of actually drawing to some kind of a societal consensus, at least among our own group. And we haven't started. There's a guy I want to bring on who wants to talk about the question of rape. And at the point that someone says that I've raped you or you've raped me, and what happens from that conversation onwards in his experience, or and other men issues that he's now picking up. I was having a conversation with him, and I'm excited to actually have just us as ordinary people to be able to start picking on this topic. He's coming up with some thoughts around what has affected him to have a delayed progress and a delayed, say, sense of maturity as a man. And what is that? How is that conversation around him look like? He's even started some hiking group with only men, and some transformative things are happening in that space. So yeah, this might not be very popular, but we're having this conversation for ourselves, so that we can actually at a particular moment come in a physical space and address it in a more comprehensive way. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your week, man.
Okay, thank you, man. Likewise, have a great day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
sure.